Hi guys, welcome back to Geeks Love Dogs Book Dragons and Good, the Bad, and the Books for April 14th, 2025. Coming to you live from sunny downtown Burbank, California. Not really. It's 3 a.m. in dreary Rochester, New York, but I was inspired by one of the books I'm reading. More about that later. Yes, I am actually shooting at 3 a.m. on my night off, because when you live in a house with 8 people and 3 giant huskies, you take all the quiet time you can to your advantage. In any case, this one might be a little longer than normal, because I do have a little quiet time, so sit right back and you hear a tale of a fateful reading trip this week, because I seem to have gotten some stuff done. So let me talk about what I've read. Let's get rid of my notebooks. All right, so first off, I did finish The Wolf of the North, which is part one in a trilogy by Duncan M. Hamilton. Now, I may have come off kind of funny last time I was talking about this book due to the fact that I was having some fantasy burnout. But again, I want to say this was a really good book. This is a Viking-inspired fantasy that is fairly stripped down to the basic nuts and bolts of a decent story, a decent fantasy story. Well done, a lot of fun. It's basically John Gwynn's The Faithful and the Fallen series with some of the extraneous storylines removed. So stripped down to its bare bones. And it works. It's really good. It's done in a few hundred pages versus 800, whatever it was. So it's a quick, fun fantasy read. It starts with a storyteller going into a tavern, and he doesn't yet know how the story is going to end because he's meeting the main character of his story for the grand finale, and he starts telling patrons who are bugging him for a story this story he's writing. And it starts with the basic trope of a child in a town who grows up to become something much more than his humble beginnings due to dire circumstances and need. This story is pretty familiar, you've been there, but I do want to say it's a kind of like a comfort food, if you like that kind of story, and it's done really, really well. So if you want a quick fantasy story that you don't have to wade through hundreds and hundreds of pages, cuts right to the basics and tells you a good story, I would suggest this series so far based on the first book. Next up, I finished my first ever Doc Savage book, The Cold Death. This is number 21 by Kenneth Robeson, the old reprints of the 1930s Doc Savage book, and I'm sorry to say, did not enjoy it. I just could not get into it. It felt very reminiscent of a 1940s Batman or Superman comic where it was written very, very young, skewed to become kind of dumbed down for what they thought the audience could handle at the time. Written for children, it's how it felt, and it still took me felt like forever to get through it because I was just kind of slogging through, just not enjoying it, and that makes me sad because I really wanted to like this. I really wanted to get into more of that type of stuff, the Green Hornet and the Phantom and the Spider and all that, and hopefully this is just a one-off because I'm going to keep trying books like that. It did remind me a lot of the old serials that they'd show before the movies as well. That kind of speech pattern, that kind of adventure, that kind of crazy action that was just felt kind of childish. But also on a more positive note, I did feel like maybe the great iconic cult movie Buckaroo Banzai may have took some inspiration from this due to the characters and the style. So that's a positive. If you've never seen Buckaroo Banzai and you're a sci-fi cult movie fan, you need to correct that mistake post haste. In honor of the release of the final book in Mark Lawrence's library trilogy coming out, I went through and read the short story collection, Missing Pages by Mark Lawrence. I had read a few of them before, but I read through them all again. And there's the stories that are in it: Overdue, Returns, About Pain, and then the brand new one, Tabula Rasa, which is only in here. And went through and read those in preparation for the release of the final book. Is a lot of fun. It was good stuff. Short stories that all pertain to that trilogy. That they weren't necessary to read to understand it, but I just wanted to make sure I got them in before the book came out. I enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun with it. So that brings me to having finally read. Got it Tuesday. Finished it Saturday morning, more or less. And the final book, the book that held her heart in the library trilogy, and I'm not going to go through much detail on it. Like I said, it's the final book in a trilogy. I'm not going to give away any secrets to you, although I'm going to say that starting with the first book, I loved it. It's something original. Mark Lawrence is not your typical fantasy writer. He's a literal genius. I mean, he had top secret clearance with the US and UK working on rockets or something. And so I know his writing isn't for everyone because maybe he forgets we're all not as smart as him. And it's definitely not your typical fantasy. He writes kind of his own style, his own way, and it's not like other fantasy you've read. So if you want fantasy that's highly intelligent and does not anywhere near stick to fantasy tropes, I might suggest you check out Mark Lawrence because he's definitely an interesting writer, and what he's done for the independent community with his contest, the SPFBO, which highlights independent authors and gives them a chance to shine, has been second to none. Nobody's ever, I've seen, done as much to promote independent authors as he has, and he deserves a look just for that alone. And I really respect what he's done for that. In any case, that's what I finished this week, those 4 books. But I've also been working on a couple other things. I have been reading, I didn't get much done in these because I was focusing on what else I was reading in Eric Brown's Starship Seasons. And I cannot wait to get back to this next week. So this also goes into what I will be reading. It started out fantastic. I haven't gotten very far, and what I have read I loved. It's science fiction and it's very casual. I made a comment about it being Jimmy Buffett meets sci-fi. It's about this guy who retires to a resort type planet, a beach type planet, and buys a spaceship of unknown origins as his house, and sets it up on his land. And there's a amazing cast that you meet that's really interesting, and there's some sci-fi elements, some mystery elements, and it's just fantastic from what I've started on, and I can't wait to get back to it. It reminded me of a show I used to watch called Key West in some ways. That's probably before most of your time. So, but in any case, I'm going to get back to that, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. I was really enjoying it, and that's going to get a lot of my focus this week. I'm also currently reading Knock Knock by S.P. Miskowski. I know I said a couple of these last week, but I kind of put aside some stuff to make sure I got through the Mark Lawrence and some other things I needed to get through. And this is a horror novel. This feels very much like a Southern Gothic, even though it takes place in rural Washington state. If you're into the Southern Gothic style of horror and literature, this might be up your alley. I will let you know more after I finish it. It could take a turn for more horror. At this point, it's about friends who have an event in the woods and what happens to them as they grow up so far. So we're going to see where that goes as I read it. I'm reading that on my e-reader, and my e-reader stuff tends to take a lot longer in general, especially if I'm putting it aside for other stuff. So apologies that I'm not farther into that, and I will get back to you on that. I'm also had started reading this week the autobiography, Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches by Tim Matheson. Now, I don't know if you remember who Tim Matheson is. He was the voice of Johnny Quest. He was Otter in Animal House, and I knew him from things like that and some 80s stuff. But I want to tell you, this book is utterly fantastic, and I had no idea how deep his Hollywood roots went and the people he worked with and the things he had done. If you like autobiographies, if you like Hollywood autobiographies, this book, I'm tearing through this, even though I'm reading it electronically, which usually takes me a longer time, is fantastic. It's just really good. I have the audiobook set up as well, and he's reading it himself. I highly recommend that if you're in the audiobooks. It is so damn good. I had no idea that he had worked with so many Hollywood celebrities and the stories he has about them, right down to Lucille Ball, Jackie Gleason, Bob Hope, Leave It to Beaver, and on and on and on. This book is just, if you like autobiographies, is utterly fantastic. I put it in my top 5-10 biographies I've ever read so far, and I'm more than halfway through. They just started it a few days ago, and it is just great. And it has actually inspired me to watch something that's in what did I watch list, which I will get to. So as far as what I'm going to read this week, like I said, I'm going to take Starship Troopers, or Starship Seasons, sorry about that. Starship Seasons, take a much deeper dive into that, focus on that. and finish the Tim Matheson book. I'm also going to start, as I said, I should have done it this week, but time escaped me, no pun intended, Scott Ferguson's Escape. This book is a book that was given to me by the author who came into my work, and we were talking. Very nice guy. He's a retired Secret Service agent who turned author, and this is his newest book. It's supposed to be a YA book, but it's touted as Hunger Games meets The Man in the High Castle, and it sounds fantastic. The cover looks fantastic, and I'm going to get this done this week and give you a report on this. He's a independent author. She sells on Amazon. Go check it out. I mean, if you even like the concept, yeah, it's a fun idea. So I can't wait to get to that. And that's what I'm going to be reading this coming week. As far as channel stuff goes, I did do, of course, last week's beginning of the newly named series, The Good, the Bad, and the Books, which is basically a weekly wrap-up where I talk about what I read, the channel stuff, etc. So that's there. Plus I did 2 book hauls that I did not intend to do. One of them was a random trip to Rick's Recycle the Books that I came home with more than I expected to, so I did a book haul of that. And the second one is I was trying to clean up the mess in this room, my gaming room, where I film and where we do D&D and gaming and where I keep my books now as well. And they were scattered all over my table and stuff. So I gathered up all the stuff I hadn't done as a haul and put it together and filmed a haul with what I had sitting on my table in this room. And that tells you how bad things are getting. And there will be more book hauls coming. Hopefully, next week, speaking of next week on the channel, I'm hoping not to do a book haul. I have a couple ideas of things, and hopefully I have time because they're both very time intensive. I want to start a new series called Spotlight, where I do a spotlight on interesting things I think you might find interesting, whether they be authors or series or whatever comes to mind. And I want to try and get back to do that Autumn Angels review. I'm calling it a book report because I'm going to basically try and tell the whole story of the book cover to cover for those who might be interested and make it amusing if I can. So hopefully those are coming instead of book hauls next week. But there will be a book haul coming the week after, I can guarantee it. So be prepared for that. Quick personal note to Bad Taste Brian. Brian of Bad Taste Books. See, I did find this book on my shelf. I have the original 93 version of this. I know we were talking about it. So I have the first edition. This one's sitting there and I've never read it, 1993. So yeah, anyway, sorry about that. Now, as far as, let's talk about what I watched. Now, my poor wife, she's down with a horrible flu. So I've been, again, left to my own devices. And instead of going book shopping, I watched a couple things on Tubi. And I did watch Cannonball with David Carradine, John Carradine, James Keach, the brother of Mike Hammer himself. This was released in July of 1976. It was the precursor to Gumball Rally and the Cannonball Run movies by Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham, as well as others like Speed Zone. This was, I don't know if I say the original, but one of the most earlier inspirations for those movies. And watching this movie, and I hadn't seen it probably since I was a little kid, I did not realize how much was stolen from that movie. I mean, literally scene for scene, character for character, for the Gumball Rally, which is one of my all-time favorites, and Cannonball Run, which I absolutely also adore. Love that movie. Terry Bradshaw in it, it's hilarious. But the amount of stuff that was taken directly and without any remorse, characters and scenes and stuff that were taken directly out of that movie and just dropped wholesale into Gumball Rally or Cannonball Run is just hilarious. But the cast wasn't the main cast, I mean, was not the story here. The story here should be the cameos, the cast that was in the background. People like Sylvester Stallone, who's an uncredited part. He has one line sitting on a couch as some kind of enforcer, mobster type. Joe Dante, Roger Corman, Martin Scorsese. They all have these mini cameo roles as nobodies in the movie, and it's pretty amusing to see. And the movie overall is your basic 70s car chase movie. You've seen it, you probably know it. But until near the end, there's a scene that's supposed to be this dramatic, meaningful, horrible scene, I guess. It's a horrific car crash scene, and it is so ridiculously over the top that this scene that's supposed to make you gasp and clutch your pearls and draw a tear, I was laughing out loud and I couldn't help it. And I'm not trying to be morose. It was just so badly done. There's an accident between like two cars on this almost empty road. And then suddenly car after car after car just slam into this accident when the open road for miles. They could see it and slow down. But for some reason, just like 17 cars all crash in that weren't even on the road before. And it's hilarious. The movie overall is not bad to watch. It's on Tubi for free. Or no, actually, I found this and it was an amazing print. I found it on YouTube and it was an immaculate copy. No grains. It was like shot in like 4K. It was brilliantly done. So it's free on YouTube if you want to check it out. I don't know how long it's going to be there. Wow, it looked really good. It looked like it was just filmed. I was utterly shocked at how clean this print was. So if you want to check it out, you can find it on YouTube. That's one thing I watched. And the other thing I watched, like I said, my wife was down. I had to do something to entertain myself so I wouldn't go book shopping again, is inspired by the Tim Matheson book. I went and watched Licorice Pizza. Now, the reason is because he states in his book that that movie is actually based on a true story by Paul Thomas Anderson, who's a director, and mostly around Gary Getzman's life, who's a famous producer and actor who he talks about in his book, who he befriends in the book. And it's actually a true story. The main character, Gary Valentine, in the movie is actually Gary Getzman, and it's based on their life. You know, they kind of combine the stories of both their lives into one, but I really wanted to check it out due to that. So the characters in there are all based on real people, and I wanted to check it out. I had tried watching it before and turned it off because I couldn't really watch it, but knowing what I was seeing was, you know, and where I was coming from and the scenes that were in it that Tim Matheson talks about, like there's a scene at the beginning where they're doing a talk show with Lucille Ball and reenacting a scene from a movie they were all in for real. And Tim Matheson's actually portrayed in that scene. It's pretty funny. I decided to check it out. And knowing what I knew going in this time, I enjoyed it a lot more because I had a connection with the movie this time. So, interesting movie. Not for everyone for sure. Because I was reading Tim Matheson's book, it really worked better for me. Anyway, those are what I watched this week. And I know this is going long. Sorry. So as far as what I listened to, how's this? What I listened to was Friday night while I was finishing up my week at work. I listened to Secret Fire Books do a broadcast of Dungeon Synth on his channel, which was a lot of fun, a lot of interesting comments and talk from him and other people who showed up for it. That was a lot of fun. Hope he does it again. And it may not be as exciting as some heavy metal that I usually talk about or death metal or whatever. For me, it was fun. And you should go check it out. If he's talking about doing it again, go check out Secret Fire Books channel. Tell him you want to hear some more of that. It was pretty interesting. So in any case, that's pretty much my week. I'm glad you showed up. I hope you'll come back. I love that you guys are here for me. Please comment and, just like, subscribe if you wish. But most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. Even if you don't want to subscribe, even if you don't want to like it, that's fine. Talk to me. Tell me, talk to me about books. That's why I'm here. In any case, remember, the secret to Zen: read books, pet dogs, listen to heavy metal. And hopefully I'll see you back here next time. Have a good day. Bye.